In the golden glow of Zahram's desert twilight, the billionaire Sheikh Rashad Al-Khoury was caught off guard. His sleek black thobe caught in the faint breeze as he stumbled, a sudden shadow lunging toward him. In that heartbeat before chaos, a slender hand grabbed his arm with surprising strength and steadiness. A young woman, eyes wide but resolute, pulled him to safety. The vast emirate stretched beyond, endless dunes, whispering ancient secrets beneath a starlit sky. The grand palace, with its soaring arches and walls adorned with intricate mosaic patterns, reflected the wealth and power Rashad wielded like a scepter. Yet in this moment, opulence meant little against the pulse of danger racing through his veins. At just 22, Maryam lived a life far removed from Sheikh Rashad's world. Her days were woven with quiet routine, her innocence shielded like delicate glass, a virgin untouched by the harshness and glitz of power. She was shy and unassuming, her simple home nestled amidst the quiet streets of Zahram's outlying district. The scent of freshly brewed cardamom tea mingled with the desert's dry breeze, a fragile calm before the storm. That night, Maryam's fearless act was nothing more than instinct. She had seen the shadow near the market and stepped in, unaware her courage would ripple far beyond her modest world. She never imagined the next dawn would shatter her fragile peace. Before the sun had fully risen, a thunder of hooves and armored footsteps shattered the morning stillness. Warriors, tall, silent, and proud, emerged like phantoms from the desert haze. Their ancient swords glinted coldly beside the protective walls Maryam had called sanctuary. Her heart thundered, an innocent prisoner, surrounded by a storm she could neither control nor understand. And amidst them, the Sheikh Billionario himself. Rashad's gaze was a tempest. Gratitude clashed with unease, the weight of his world pressing down. His dark eyes searched Maryam's frightened face, trying to decode the quiet bravery that had saved him. There was something fragile, yet fierce in her, a stark contrast to his iron will. He spoke no words at first, only a glance, heavy with questions and unspoken promises. Maryam met it bravely, confusion blooming into defiance. The air between them crackled, a collision of innocence and power, two worlds colliding under ancient stars. His warrior's arrival was no mere show of protection. Whispers stirred behind his stoic mask. An old debt, a blood oath, or a shadowed secret threatening to unravel the fragile trust born that night. Was Maryam's safety the only prize Rashad sought, or was something darker unfolding in the desert's silent depths? Just as the sun began to rise over Zahram's endless dunes, the Sheikh's piercing gaze fixed upon the innocent face of the young woman. Yet behind the walls of his grand palace, shadows whispered of a secret even he dared not reveal. Before the next secret of this desert kingdom unfolds, make sure you're part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies await, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if the heart of this billionaire sheikh has already intrigued you. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching this saga from, and what twist do you think awaits? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep going. Thank you for joining us. Conte a história com força emocional, riqueza visual e tensão crescente. Faça o sheik bilionário e a inocente salvadora viverem em cada palavra. E prepare o corte para o capítulo 2 com um gancho inesquecível, deixando o público desesperado para continuar. The dawn's fragile light barely pierced the heavy veil that hung over Zahram's grand palace. Inside its opulent walls, the air was thick with unspoken tension, every shadow seeming to stretch longer, heavier, laden with secrets waiting to surface. Sheikh Billionario Rashad Al-Khoury stood motionless in the vast hall, eyes fixed on Mariam, a young woman whose unexpected courage had shifted the balance of his carefully controlled world. Her modest dress fluttered slightly as a whisper of desert wind slipped through the open veranda. Rashad's gaze didn't waver. In that endless silence, an invisible thread connected two souls from utterly different worlds, one forged by power and wealth, the other by resilience and fragile innocence. He waited for words, but none came. Mariam's breath hitched, and her fingers twitched nervously, as if searching for a lifeline in his storm-dark eyes. The weight of the palace, its gilded chandeliers and intricate mosaics, seemed to close in around them, magnifying the fragile barrier between the sheik and this unexpected savior. Inexplicably, Rashad's hand twitched, brushing a stray lock of Mariam's hair back from her face. The motion was so soft, so out of place amidst the tension. It startled even him. The sweetness of cardamom and sandalwood, the scent he had not noticed before, suddenly blossomed in the heavy air. "You do not belong here," he finally said, voice low and rough, echoing off marble and gold. "Yet you saved me." Mariam's eyes met his without trembling. "I do what is right," she replied, voice barely above a whisper, fragile but fierce. Around them, silence deepened, the palace itself seeming to hold its breath. Behind the towering sheik, shadows moved, his warriors still poised by the grand entrance, their silent presence reminding Mariam that this was not just a palace, but a fortress, guarding not only wealth, but fragile secrets and steep debts owed long ago. Rashad's mind raced, the echo of a blood oath whispered through forgotten corridors of power. Every heartbeat hammered like war drums beneath his polished exterior. The shadow that threatened him was older and darker than he had admitted, entwined with Mariam's sudden apparition in his life. Why did you act? To what end? His question hung in the glowing morning light. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Because no one else would. She dared a glance downward, where her trembling hands clutched the hem of her dress. Even when the desert winds howl, some of us have no choice but to stand. For a moment, Rashad saw not the girl from the dusty streets, but a fierce flame, flickering stubbornly in the desert night. A resolve that defied his own cold command. Suddenly, a distant sound shattered the stillness. A hurried footstep echoed through the marble corridors. Rashad tensed, the moment of fragile understanding broken. A figure emerged from the shadows near the grand staircase. Zainab, his chief advisor, her usual stern mask cracked ever so slightly by concern. She bowed her head briefly to Mariam, a gesture filled with unspoken acknowledgement, and turned toward Rashad. "Sheikh, the council demands your presence. There are matters regarding your late father's debts and Miriam's arrival has stirred more than the usual whispers. Rashad's dark eyes flickered with warning. "I did not summon them," he said, voice hard as granite, "and I will decide what happens next." Zainab's gaze sharpened, but she bowed again and left without another word. The palace seemed to hold its breath once more. Alone again, Rashad faced Miriam, the gulf between their worlds suddenly wide and yet bridged by that single act of courage. "Do you understand where you stand?" he asked, voice now both an accusation and a warning. She nodded slowly, but her chin lifted, a silent declaration of strength. "I am no longer the frightened girl from the outskirts. Not after tonight." The sheik regarded her, the lines of his face softening, revealing the man behind. The title, the man capable of both ruthless command and unexpected tenderness. But before he could step closer, before the delicate thread binding them could even begin to weave itself into something new, a messenger arrived. A scarred man, breathless, with eyes wild as the desert wind. "Sheikh Rashad," he gasped, "there's been a breach. Someone from your own council has betrayed you." Rashad's heart thundered in his chest. The fragile trust, just forged, now cracking under the weight of imminent betrayal. He turned sharply, the fire in his gaze reigniting. "And Miriam," he said, voice low but fierce, "this is not just your shadow, but mine as well. You must prepare. It seems your courage has only drawn you deeper into the desert's dangerous games." Miriam swallowed hard, but nodded, the strength in her eyes now glowing with fiery determination. Behind the palace walls, the secrets of Zahram whispered louder than ever. The line between salvation and destruction was razor-thin. Rashad stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper as the sun rose higher, casting a harsh light on the unfolding storm. "Trust no one, not even those who claim to protect you." And in that moment, as their worlds collided under the searing desert sun, a figure watched from the shadows, an enemy cloaked in power and deceit, smiling as the game began anew. The scarred messenger's breath came in ragged gasps, his dark eyes darting nervously as he struggled to steady himself within the grand hall's ornate walls. His words hung heavy in the stillness, the weight of betrayal sharper than the desert's fiercest sandstorm. Sheikh Rashad al-Khoury's jaw clenched, his gaze hardened into steel. The fragile thread of trust that had barely woven itself between him and Miriam now strained dangerously under new shadows. He moved forward with the cold authority of a man who had faced death in countless battles, and now found his most intimate circle stained with treachery. "We have guards at every gate," Rashad muttered, eyes flitting through the rows of polished marble pillars, searching for an invisible enemy cloaked in deceit. "Someone close has turned against me." Miriam stayed silent, her heart pounding as she tried to steady the whirlwind within her. The grandeur of the palace seemed suffocating, as if every gilded ornament whispered secrets meant to unnerve her. Yet beneath the surface of her trembling fear, something deeper stirred, a steady flame born from her unexpected courage. She looked up into Rashad's dark eyes and saw, for the first time, vulnerability stark against his commanding presence. A man burdened not only by the weight of his title, but by chains of loyalty fractured and threatened by betrayal. The messenger's voice broke through the tension again. Our scouts spotted suspicious movements near the eastern wing. Orders were intercepted, and a trusted member of the council, Khalid, has been seen in secret meetings with outsiders from a rival tribe. Rashad's face tightened, the lines around his eyes deepening with the gravity of accusation. Khalid, my father trusted him like a brother. Miriam's breath hitched. She had heard murmurs of Khalid's influence before, but never dared imagine him as a traitor. Her world, so simple and sheltered, was unraveling at the edges, drawn into the dangerous power plays of the palace. I will confront him, Rashad said, voice low but resolute. His eyes flickered to Miriam. Stay close. These halls are not safe for the faint-hearted. She nodded, swallowing the lump rising in her throat. The loyalty she had once known was dissolving, replaced by shadows and whispered lies. As Rashad strode toward the inner chambers, the cool marble floor seemed to amplify his measured footsteps, each strike echoing like a drumbeat, heralding a silent war. Miriam followed, her senses sharpening to every stolen glance, every hushed conversation that trailed behind locked doors. The palace, a fortress of power and legacy, now felt like a labyrinth of secrets, and Miriam was walking deeper into its heart. They reached the council chamber, a cavernous room adorned with rich tapestries deep in crimson and gold. The heavy oak table was scarred by decades of political battles, and seated around it were men and women whose faces betrayed the thinly veiled tension among them. At the far end, Khalid sat with an unnatural calm, his dark eyes flicking to Rashad with a mixture of respect and defiance. The room fell silent as the sheik entered, the air thick with unspoken confrontations. You betrayed your blood and your oath, Rashad said, his voice cutting through the silence like a sharp desert wind. Khalid's lips curled into a bitter smile. Oaths mean little when the throne itself is unstable. Your father's debts have shackled us all. I seek only to save Zahram from ruin, even if it costs us the loyalty of a few. Rashad's gaze never wavered. By siding with our enemies, you bring ruin faster. Do you think your actions will go unpunished? The tension snapped as another council member stepped forward, his voice trembling. The people whisper that Miriam, the girl who saved the sheik, is more than a simple citizen, that her blood hides dangers we cannot yet name. Miriam stiffened, surprised by the sudden attention. Rashad's eyes darkened with warning. She is here because fate placed her by my side, nothing more. Do not let fear breed rumors that poison our loyalty. Khalid's eyes narrowed, voice dripping venom. Perhaps the sheik's fate is bound to hers in ways even he cannot see. She has stirred the desert winds, and not all are pleased. Rashad's chest tightened, the fragile alliance with Miriam, now precariously balanced against the shifting currents in the palace. He felt the old weight of his family's legacy press against him, ancient debts, whispering betrayal, and the unforgiving desert sun bearing down on his every step. The sheik turned abruptly, signaling to Miriam to follow. Outside, the courtyard's expansive marble reflected the now high sun, its heat licking at their skin like a silent warning. "Trust is scarce here," he murmured, his voice low but fierce. "You have stepped beyond the safety of your small world, Miriam. The palace is a battlefield, and every shadow hides a threat." She swallowed, the courage born the night before now tempered by the harsh reality laid bare before her. But beneath her fear, a spark of defiance flared. She wasn't merely a pawn in these dangerous games. She was a player. Rashad's gaze softened for a fleeting moment, a rare vulnerability slipping through his usual iron mask. "You saved me once," he said quietly, "but the desert's secrets run deep, and your courage may be the only light I can count on in the darkness ahead." Before Miriam could respond, the heavy palace doors slammed shut behind them with a resonant boom. A cold wind swept through the courtyard, carrying with it the scent of sand and betrayal. And from the shadows, unseen but watching, a pair of eyes gleamed with ruthless calculation, one that carried the cruel satisfaction of a game master, confident his next move would unravel everything Rashad held dear. The desert's tale was far from over. The sands shifted, and with them the fate of the billionaire sheikh and the girl who dared to challenge destiny. The grand courtyard shimmered under the unforgiving sun, its marble floor slick with heat that rose like waves from the sands beyond. Sheikh Rashad Al-Khoury's silhouette cut a striking figure against the intricate mosaic pillars, his expression carved. From stone yet trembling beneath the harsh glare of betrayal. Behind him, Miriam's heartbeat echoed thunderously, a wild rhythm that refused to be silenced by fear. Their world, once a fragile balance of hesitation and hope, now teetered on the edge of ruin. Rashad's dark eyes burned with a fierce intensity as he strode swiftly toward the inner sanctum, each step a declaration of command and a silent warning to those who dared conspire against him. The palace that had once felt like a sanctuary now bristled with unseen threats, every whisper a dagger poised to strike. Miriam walked beside him, her modest robes brushing the cool stone, but their warmth did nothing to thaw the chill creeping along her spine. For all the luxury surrounding them, the heavy curtains embroidered with gold threads, the scent of red air, frankincense lingering faintly in the air. Here, danger was the most potent perfume. "Why would Khalid betray you?" Miriam's voice trembled, the question barely audible above the weight of silence. Rashad's jaw tightened, shadows flickering in his eyes like broken glass reflecting fractured trust. "Because power is a cruel desert, Miriam. It starves those who cannot feed it constantly." His voice dropped, rough with the ache of loss. "My father's legacy is a chain, and some wear it willingly to survive." She met his gaze steadily, steel hiding within her quiet courage. "And you? Are you willing to break free, or will you remain bound?" He paused, the tension between them a palpable thread pulled taut in the heat. A moment stretched long enough to fold the world into silence, before he spoke again. "I will break it. With fire, if I must." Their footsteps brought them to the vast council chamber doors, ornate carvings depicting the history of Zahram etched into their wood. Rashad's palm pressed against the cold grain, a silent promise that the battleground ahead was no mere place of politics. It was the crucible where his destiny would be forged. Inside, the council awaited, their faces masks of thinly veiled suspicion and calculation. Khalid lounged against his chair with a disturbing ease, as if the weight of accusation was a comfortable cloak rather than chains. "You stand accused." Rashad's voice sliced the room, commanding silence. "Not only of betrayal, but of endangering everything my family has built." Whispers rustled like dry leaves. Miriam's gaze swept over the assembly. Strong men and women dressed in silks and brocades that gleamed like jewels, yet none shone brighter than the cold glint of ambition festering beneath their composed exteriors. Khalid's smirk twisted with venom. "The empire your father left is crumbling. Holding on to outdated oaths won't save us." His glance flickered briefly to Miriam, sharp as a blade, especially with this unexpected savior stirring unrest among the people. Miriam's throat tightened. The words felt like shards, piercing the fragile shield she'd built around herself. But instead of retreating, she squared her shoulders, her voice steady and clear. "I am no threat, but a girl who acted on conscience. If that disturbs the palace, then perhaps this house of power needs more than whispers. It needs change." Rashad's eyes lingered on her, admiration and protectiveness mingling with the storm raging inside. Yet the room's tension snapped like a frayed rope. Another council member, an elder with lines etched deep from years of silent battles, stepped forward. "Alone your spirit shines, Miriam. But this is a kingdom woven by darker threads." His gaze burned into Rashad. "Be wary whose loyalties shift like desert sands. The true enemy may yet be within." A charged silence swallowed the chamber. Rashad's blood boiled. He turned on his heel, storming from the room with Miriam at his side. The palace corridors swallowed their hurried footsteps, the ancient walls heavy with secrets and old ghosts. Outside, the courtyard's heat seemed to press inward, the bright afternoon sun casting long shadows that stretched like fingers, hungry for justice. "Do you understand the peril you face?" Rashad's voice was low, harsh as the desert wind. "This palace hides more than gold and honor. It hides poison. Trust is a blade you wield cautiously, or it will cut deepest when least expected." Miriam met his gaze, fire kindling in her soft eyes. "I've faced storms before, Sheikh. I will not be broken now." For a rare beat, Rashad's stern mask cracked, revealing the man beneath, the man who had fought a lifetime of wars, yet now waged the fiercest battle for his own heart. Before he could speak, a chilling laugh echoed faintly, carried on a breath of wind that seemed to freeze the air itself. A figure emerged from a shadowed alcove beneath a towering arch, cloaked in midnight silk, eyes gleaming with cruel delight. The stranger's smile was a secret weapon, sharp and merciless. "Ah, Sheikh Rashad," the voice whispered, laced with mockery and menace. "Did you truly believe your kingdom was safe, that your enemies wore unfamiliar faces?" Rashad's muscles tensed, every instinct screaming danger. Miriam's hand brushed against his sleeve, a silent plea and a promise intertwined. The figure stepped forward, the sun catching the glint of a ring adorned with a serpent coiling around a ruby, the mark of an ancient rivalry, a curse in its own right. "The game has only just begun," the shadow said softly, voice dripping with venomous certainty. And with that, the palace gates trembled as distant drums began a slow, ominous beat, echoing the gathering storm waiting to engulf Zahram, its Sheikh Billionario, and the girl who dared defy fate beside him. The sun dipped lower beyond Zahram's horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like the silent threats lingering within the palace walls. Rashad's footsteps echoed against the marble floor, each strike a drumbeat of rising conflict. Mariam followed closely, her pulse quickening with every breath of perfumed air mixing with the desert's chill as evening approached. They reached a secluded terrace overlooking the vast dunes, where the last golden light danced on intricate mosaic patterns beneath their feet. The quiet here was fragile, a deceptive calm before a storm that neither could fully grasp. Rashad's dark eyes searched Miriam's face, struggling to read the courage that burned beneath her quiet exterior. "You have stepped beyond the safety of your world," he said softly, the weight of his words hanging between them like the cool desert night. "This palace is no longer just a fortress of stone, but a battlefield of shadows, where loyalty fractures and every whisper carries a blade." Miriam's gaze met his unwaveringly. "I am no stranger to storms," she replied, voice steady despite the nervous tremor beneath. "If the desert tests me, I will not yield." The Sheikh's expression softened for a moment, a flicker of something almost tender beneath the iron mask. Yet that flicker was quickly swallowed by the ever-present hardness born from years of betrayal. "We cannot trust even the closest," Rashad murmured, eyes flickering toward the palace gates, now glowing faintly in the deepening dusk. "Khalid's treachery is only the beginning. Others lurk in shadows, their allegiance veiled by smiles and silks." Mariam swallowed the sudden chill that traced her spine. This world of opulence was riddled with venom beneath its dazzling surface, a truth she was only beginning to understand. Her hand brushed lightly against the balustrade, the stone cold to the touch, anchoring her to this perilous new reality. Suddenly, the sharp sound of footsteps on the marble behind them shattered the silence. Rashad turned, his gaze narrowing as a figure slipped from the shadows, a slender woman draped in fine emerald fabric, eyes blazing with unspoken purpose. "Zainab," Rashad said, his voice controlled but edged with warning. "What news brings you at this hour?" Zainab inclined her head gracefully, but her eyes betrayed urgency. "The council meets in secret tonight," she said in a low tone, "to discuss the rumors stirred by Miriam's arrival. Some fear her presence will unravel the fragile unity we cling to." Her words hung heavily, and Rashad's jaw clenched. "Rumors are poison," he said, his voice low but fierce. "We must silence them before they breed a plague." Miriam stood straighter, feeling the sharp gaze of Zainab, a woman wielding power as deftly as the sheikh himself. "Let them speak their fears," Miriam said, her voice clear and bold. "Perhaps the truth they dread is the only cure." Zainab's lips pressed into a thin line, a flicker of admiration softening her features. "You have fire," she replied. "But this fire must be tempered with caution. The desert is unforgiving to those who burn too bright, too fast. Rashad nodded slowly, the weight of that warning settling on them both. Tonight, the council's secrets will be revealed. You will come with me, Miriam. There is no turning back now. The sky darkened as stars awakened, their ancient brilliance a silent witness to the gathering tempest. Hand in hand, they moved deeper into the palace, the corridors now seeming a labyrinth designed to trap both allies and enemies alike. Within the grand hall, faint murmurs rippled like a restless wind. The council had convened in a Pim chamber, its walls lined with tapestries, whispering of Zahram's storied past. At the center sat the conspirators, faces veiled by shadow and ambition. Rashad's entrance silenced the whispers. His presence radiated power that swallowed the flicker of dissent. But the tension was palpable. A coiled serpent ready to strike. Khalid sat at the far end, his eyes gleaming with smug defiance, while others shifted uneasily under Rashad's gaze. Miriam remained close to Rashad's side, her pulse steadying as she absorbed the undercurrents of hostility swirling around her. A voice broke the silence, deep, cold, resonant with venom. Sheikh Rashad, you may command the throne, but the desert remembers debts unpaid and promises broken. Rashad's eyes locked with Khalid's. Your treachery will cost you everything, he declared, voice ironclad. But it is the unseen enemies that will bring true ruin. A sudden flicker caught Miriam's eye, a movement subtle and deliberate from behind a carved archway. Instinct surged through her veins. Wait, she whispered, fingers tightening around Rashad's arm. Not all threats wear open faces. Rashad's gaze shifted sharply, following hers to the shadowed figure stepping forward. A man cloaked in midnight, his smile a cold slash in the darkness. The council murmured, a ripple of apprehension passing through the chamber. Meet Harun, the stranger said smoothly, voice like silk and steel. A friend to some, a servant to none. I offer a new path for Zahram, but at a price. Rashad's hand closed into a fist, tension radiating like heat from his frame. Speak your terms. Harun's smile deepened, a serpent coiled and ready to strike. Join me, Sheikh, or be consumed by those who already play the game in shadows. Your past debts, your father's legacy, they bind you tighter than chains. I offer freedom, if you dare grasp it. Miriam's breath caught, the weight of his words settling like desert dust in the room. This was no mere betrayal or political intrigue. It was an invitation to destroy or be destroyed. Rashad's voice propped to a dangerous whisper. I do not bargain with vipers. Harun's eyes flickered with amusement. Then be ready, for the vipers have already burrowed deep. As Harun stepped back into the shadows, the chambers seemed to close in around Rashad and Miriam, a tempest gathering behind ancient walls. Rashad turned to Miriam, resolve hardening in his gaze. This war will test us both. Your courage sparked a light, but now the desert waits to see if it will burn or be snuffed out. Miriam's reply was steady, fire burning behind her eyes. Then let the desert winds howl. I will stand by your side. Outside, the palace gates rattled ominously. the night air thick with the scent of betrayal and silence, and in the deepest shadow, eyes that knew every secret glimmered with cruel delight. For the game had only just begun, and the stakes were higher than either Rashad or Miriam could imagine. The night deepened around Zahram's palace, swallowing the last hues of dusk as Rashad and Miriam stood on the edge of a world suddenly too complex to navigate. The whisper of desert wind wove through the marble pillars, carrying with it the heavy scent of frankincense and something far darker: betrayal. Rashad's gaze burned sharp, assessing the weight of the room behind him. His once unshakable fortress now resonated with suspicion and fractured trust. The council's walls held whispers sharp as daggers, and somewhere within those shadows curled the serpents of treachery, determined to poison his reign. Miriam remained close, her heart a steady drum that challenged the storm roaring inside her. The fragility she once felt had been replaced by something fiercer, forged in fire and fear. She was no longer the quiet girl of Zahram's outskirts. The palace had claimed her, whether she was ready or not. "Do you feel it?" Rashad's voice was a low rumble, almost lost beneath the dripping silence of the chamber. "This place, it is alive with whispers and dangerous games. Every smile hides a blade. Every step unlocks a trap." She met his gaze with a courage that surprised even herself. "Then we must learn to dance between the knives," she said softly, "or we will fall like so many before us." A tense silence followed, heavy enough to drown in. Rashad's jaw clenched as movement flickered near the arched doorway. The shadows themselves seemed to breathe, tightening like the noose that threatened to strangle his fragile hold on power. From the darkness stepped Harun, his presence a cold gust of night air that unsettled the very stones beneath their feet. The ring on his finger caught what little light filtered in, a serpent coiled around a blood-red ruby, a token of ancient grudges and venomous intent. "You should have stayed in the sands, Miriam." His voice was silk laced with venom. "The palace is no place for innocence." Rashad's eyes narrowed, the fire within them a roaring blaze. "Harun, your poison spreads faster than desert wildfire, but I stand firm." Harun's smile was a cruel twist of lips. "Firmness is folly when the ground beneath shifts. Your bloodline's debts are chains you refuse to see. I bring freedom, a poison or a cure. Choose wisely." Miriam's breath caught, every instinct screaming danger. The palace, once a bastion of order, now felt like a labyrinth of lethal shadows. The lines between friend and foe blurred into a nightmarish haze. Rashad stepped forward, his tall frame blocking the faint light, casting a long shadow across the mosaic floor. "You offer chains disguised as wings," he said, voice dripping with scorn. "I will never bow to vipers." Harun's eyes glittered with amusement. "Then prepare to be undone, Sheikh. The game has only just begun." As Harun withdrew, the chamber doors groaned shut, the sound sealing them in a bubble of escalating tension. Rashad turned to Miriam, the weight of his world laid bare in the depths of his gaze. "Tonight, the palace reveals its true face. Trust fractures here as easily as glass." She swallowed, steadying herself against the rising tide of uncertainty. Then we face it together. Outside, distant drums began to beat, a slow, inevitable march that echoed against the desert sands. The night air grew colder, a warning unheeded by those cloaked in power. In the sanctity of the moonlit terrace, Rashad and Miriam stood side by side, the vast dunes stretching like an ocean of secrets behind them. The stars glittered coldly, indifferent to human struggles. Rashad's voice broke the silence, low and rough. I have lived in the shadow of my father's legacy, bound by debts I never desired. Now, I must decide if I am a prisoner or a king. Miriam reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist, a hesitant touch that spoke volumes. You are neither slave nor monarch alone. You have the strength to forge a new path. He looked down at her, the iron in his eyes softening. Yet the path is lined with vipers waiting to strike. Her answer was steady, unwavering. Then let them come. I will stand with you, not as a shadow nor a pawn, but as an equal. Their hands lingered for a fragile moment, a silent pact forged in the desert's breath. Suddenly, distant footsteps shattered the fragile peace. Rashad's body tensed, eyes scanning the horizon. A figure cloaked in black emerged from the shadows, bearing a sealed parchment. The messenger's approach was slow, deliberate. Rashad's dark gaze locked onto the emblem stamped in wax. A serpent entwined with a scimitar, a mark known only to those steeped in the palace's deepest intrigues. He took the scroll with a steady hand, breaking the seal with a sharp snap that seemed to echo through the night air. His lips pressed into a thin line as he read, each word a dagger twisted with cruel precision. A plan unveiled, an alliance forged in silence between their most trusted council members, and a rival emirate poised to strike when Zahram was weakest. Miriam's breath caught, the world narrowing to that single, devastating revelation. The circle tightens, Rashad said grimly, rolling the parchment with deliberate care. My enemies are not only outside these walls, they wear the faces of those sworn to protect. He turned, eyes blazing with fierce resolve that could ignite the coldest desert night. If betrayal breathes within, then trust must be earned, not given. Miriam stepped closer, voice low but fierce. Then trust me with your secrets. Let me walk this path beside you. The Sheikh's features softened briefly, the barrier between their worlds thinning like morning mist. But even as hope flickered, a shadow detached from the palace's darker corners, a silhouette watching with hungry eyes, savoring the fragile cracks forming in Rashad's reign. The desert, relentless and eternal, whispered its secrets. And beneath its endless sky, a deadly game unfolded. The night swallowed their words. Only one truth remained. No one was truly safe within the palace walls. The tension hanging in the council chamber thickened like the desert night itself. Rashad's eyes burned with the weight of betrayal as he confronted Khalid, whose defiant calm was like a cold blade pressed against the fragile peace in the room. The tapestry-laden walls seemed to close in, shadows swallowing the golden light that fought to penetrate the heavy air. Miriam's heart pounded in wild synchrony with the storm that raged beneath Rashad's composed exterior. She stood closer now, no longer the timid stranger from Zahram's outskirts, but a quiet force beneath the flash of swords and whispered treacheries. Every polished marble tile beneath her feet carried the memory of past battles, and she felt the heavy pulse of history binding them all, bound by oath, by blood, and now by the fragile hope flickering between her and the Sheikh Billionaire. Rashad's voice cut sharply through the murmurs. "Khalid, your betrayal reaches deeper than the council's walls. You threaten my family's legacy and every soul loyal to Zahram." His gaze was unyielding, shadowed with storm and steel. "Why align yourself with those who seek to unravel our very foundation?" Khalid smiled, the cruelty in his eyes igniting the room's tension like wildfire. "You hold tightly to a crown weighed down by debts you refuse to repay. My loyalty is to Zahram's survival, though it means tearing down walls that no longer stand." His words dripped with venom, the sting sharpened by years of silent scheming. Then his gaze shifted to Miriam. An uneasy flicker passed through the assembly. Especially when a stray spark threatens to consume what little balance remains. Miriam met his gaze steadily, the flush of anger rising beneath her modest robes. Her voice was steady, clear as the desert dawn. "I am no threat to this kingdom, only an act of conscience in a world clouded by fear. If my courage shakes foundations, perhaps those foundations were already cracked." Rashad's dark eyes softened, a conflicted mixture of admiration and protectiveness flashing briefly before the hard lines of command returned. He stepped forward, the flickering light casting both man and monument into stark relief. "Miriam, your courage is a flame I never anticipated. But flames can burn as easily as they warm. You must be prepared. The palace is a serpent's nest." The council's restless whispers braided into a rising storm as an elder member spoke, voice thick with the weight of experience. "Strength alone is not enough. Bonds of blood and loyalty twist like desert roots. But beware, some roots conceal vipers' fangs." His eyes locked with Rashad's, a stark reminder that trust was the rarest treasure. In Zahram's gilded halls, the confrontation was shattered by the soft clink of jewels and the sudden presence of Zainab, her arrival piercing the room's tension with quiet authority. Draped in emerald silk that flowed like liquid jade, her gaze was sharp as a scimitar's edge. "The council's divisions widen," she murmured, her voice a shade above a whisper. "And whispers of Miriam's presence fan old fears. Unity is fragile, but so is our survival." Rashad's jaw clenched. "Reckless words breed dangerous phantoms. We will quash the whispers before they poison the house that guards us." Miriam's steady reply echoed in the charged space. "Sometimes truth must rise from the ashes of fear to cleanse stale decay." Zainab's inscrutable expression softened, a flicker of respect lighting her dark eyes. "Your fire is fierce, girl, but the desert does not forgive haste." She turned to Rashad. "Tonight, the council meets in secret. The stakes have never been higher." The gathering dusk seeped through the high windows, draping the chamber in molten amber and purple, a sunset bleeding into night. Rashad nodded, an unspoken command weaving between him and Mariam. They would face whatever storm came, side by side. The palace halls swallowed their footsteps as they left the council chamber, the heavy door closing with muted finality. Outside, the courtyard simmered under a moon washed in silver, its marble gleaming cold as a blade poised for battle. Rashad's voice dropped low, almost a murmur. "Mariam, you have stepped beyond the safety of your world. This palace. It is no longer just stone and legend. It is a stage where every smile can mask a dagger, and every alliance can be a noose." Mariam's gaze did not waver. "Then we will learn to walk through fire together, or be consumed." A sudden chill seized the night air as a shadow detached from the blackened archways. From the darkness stepped Harun, his silk robes whispering secrets as he moved. A serpent coiling about a gem catching the pale light. That ruby, entwined by a snake's head, gleamed with ancient enmity. "Welcome to Zahram's true theater," he intoned smoothly, voice laced with venom and promise. "Did you think power and blood debts were the only games here? The real battles are fought from the shadows, where friend and foe blur." Rashad's muscles tensed, eyes narrowing to slits of burning coal. "Harun, your poison runs deeper than any desert well. Speak, do you come with venom or offer salvation?" A cruel grin twisted Harun's lips. "Salvation for those bold enough to seize it, destruction for the faint-hearted. Your father's legacy chains you, but I hold the key, to unlock or to shatter. Choose wisely, Sheikh." Mariam's breath faltered, the weight of that choice settling over her like desert dust. Inescapable, suffocating. The palace's shadows lengthened, swallowing promises and betrayals alike. Rashad's voice hardened, iron forged in years of battle. "I bow to no serpent, nor to the lies they whisper." The hint of a smile lingered on Harun's lips, cold and merciless. "Then prepare. The vipers have already nested within your veins. The game has only begun." As Harun retreated into the veil of darkness, the heavy chamber door slammed shut, sealing Rashad and Mariam inside a crucible, poised to break or forge anew. Rashad turned, eyes fierce and unyielding, meeting Mariam's steady gaze. "Brace yourself. Tonight, we may lose more than loyalty. We may lose ourselves." She reached out, fingers brushing against his arm, a touch electric and resolute. "Then let the desert winds howl. I stand with you, through every betrayal, every shadow." A distant echo rose through the palace walls, a haunting melody of drums, slow and relentless, pounding out a dirge for the kingdom's fragile peace. And from the darkest corner behind the throne, a pair of eyes flickered with ruthless anticipation, waiting to strike when the night was at its blackest. The heavy palace doors slammed shut behind them, a thunderous finality that seemed to seal the fragile alliance between Rashad and Mariam, and yet also the trap tightening around them. The dimly lit corridor stretched before them, its shadows long and restless. whispering secrets born from centuries of power struggles and silent betrayals. Rashad's gaze cut through the darkness, sharp as a desert scimitar. His breath came steady, but his heart thundered beneath the weight of the day's revelations. Miriam's hand brushed lightly against his sleeve, a flicker of warmth amid the chill that seeped through the gilded stone. "We have crossed a line," Rashad murmured, voice rough with the grit of impending war. "The council is fractured, and trust is a currency more precious than gold, but it is also the rarest to be found." Miriam swallowed, her eyes steady, reflecting the flickering torches that lined the walls. "I never imagined the palace so rife with poison. It is as if every smile hides a blade." A soft rustle echoed ahead. Rashad's hand moved instinctively to the dagger concealed beneath his thobe, a gesture that betrayed neither panic nor hesitation. "And every blade has an owner waiting for the perfect moment." They passed beneath archways carved with tales of Zahram's glory, the air thick with the scent of frankincense and the faint trace of sandalwood, the perfume of power and tradition, now marred by deception. The silence between them grew, charged with unspoken fears and cautious hope. Suddenly, the faintest sound, a ripple of silk, a breath in the darkness, alerted Rashad. He halted, eyes narrowing. Miriam's heart clenched, but her stance remained firm. In this world, fear was a luxury neither could afford. From the shadows stepped a figure cloaked in the deep blue of twilight, features obscured beneath a hood. The soft click of heels against polished marble echoed through the hall. Rashad's gaze darkened. "Ah, Sheikh." "Rashad." The voice was smooth, laced with a venomous charm, still clutching to loyalty as if it were a shield. The figure stepped closer, revealing the sharp elegance of Zainab's eyes, calculating, fierce, yet tinged with an unreadable sorrow. Rashad's jaw tightened. "Zainab, what winds bring you to the shadows when the council burns in daylight?" Her eyes flickered briefly to Miriam, a subtle acknowledgement. "The council divides, and the desert's breath shifts with every whispered doubt. Miriam's presence unsettles old ghosts, and not all are prepared. So close to the lion's den. The palace holds many who would see you fall before the dawn breaks." Rashad stepped forward, his shadow merging with Miriam's in the torchlight. "We stand united. Let those who lurk in darkness reveal themselves." For a fleeting moment, the silence held its breath, and then a distant rumble, a deep, resonant drumbeat, filtered through the thick palace walls, a relentless rhythm that seemed to echo the beating of countless hearts bracing for battle. Zainab's eyes darkened with meaning. Tonight, the council meets once more. Secrets will spill and masks will shatter. Do not mistake appearances for truth, Sheikh. The greatest threat often wears the smile closest to your own. Before Rashad could respond, a sudden chill swept through the corridor as a door opened further down, spilling shadows like a flood. Man stepped in, a stranger with a cold smile and eyes like polished obsidian. His gaze fixed on Rashad and Miriam with unsettling calm. "Harun." Rashad's voice was a harsh whisper, edged with disdain. "Your serpent's tongue twists lies as easily as silk." Harun's smile deepened. I bring no pleasantries or false promises. Only truths, only the brave dare wield. His ring caught the flicker of flame, the ruby coiled by a serpent, a deadly emblem etched in history. Your father's debts chain your fate. But I offer a choice. Submit and survive, or resist and be devoured. Miriam's breath hitched, her fingers tightening around Rashad's arm. The weight of Haroun's words pressed down, a storm looming. Rashad's gaze blazed with the fire of defiance. I bow to no one, not to venom, nor to threats veiled in shadow. Haroun's laughter was low, thick with cruel amusement. Very well. Then prepare, Sheikh. The vipers are already beneath your skin, and their strike will be swift. With that, he melted back into darkness, leaving an echoing silence charged with peril. Rashad exhaled slowly, turning to Miriam. The fire in his eyes blazed brighter now, not just with command, but with a fragile, burgeoning trust. This night will test every shard of our strength, he said softly. You have ignited a light in the darkness, but now we must see if it can truly burn without being extinguished. Miriam met his gaze, unwavering. Then let the desert winds howl. We face this storm together. As the distant drums grew louder, blending with the desert's endless night, dark depths. The game had only just begun, and the desert's secrets were far from spent. The first light of dawn spilled softly over Zahram, painting the sky in hues of rose and amber, as if the desert itself breathed a sigh of relief. Within the grand palace, the tension that had gripped every corner the night before dissipated, replaced by a fragile peace born from truth faced and betrayals unmasked. Sheikh Rashad Al-Khoury stood in the open courtyard, his dark eyes finally free from shadows. Beside him, Marian's hand rested lightly in his, their fingers interlaced with a quiet strength, two worlds no longer divided, but united by the trials they had endured. The vast dunes beyond shimmered golden in the new light, bearing witness to a dawn not just of day, but of a new beginning for them both. The storm within the palace had broken with the courage of a single voice, Miriam's. Her bravery had cut through the lies and deceit that shadowed the halls like a growing sandstorm, and Rashad's unyielding resolve had drawn sword against those who threatened the fragile order of Zahram. Khalid's treachery had ended beneath the weight of truth and justice. Stripped of his titles and influence, he was confined beyond the palace walls. A reminder that even those closest to the throne could be unmasked. The council, once rife with whispered betrayals, now began to mend, their fractured loyalties knitting slowly with Rashad's firm hand, guiding the fragile unity. Inside the palace, Zainab's steady presence served as a bridge between old traditions and the new path Rashad was forging, one that embraced change but held fast to honor. She had laid aside suspicion and found respect in Miriam's unshakable spirit, seeing in her a woman who was no longer an outsider, but a vital force in the Emirates' future. As for Haroun, the serpent who had slithered through shadowed plots, his power waned in the face of Rashad's renewed command. His threats dissipated, his alliances fractured, leaving him isolated, a venomous echo fading into silence. The palace gardens, once a place of quiet beauty overshadowed by secrets, now blossomed anew under the desert sun. Fragrant jasmine and blooming dates trees seemed to mirror the renewal in Rashad's heart. Among those vibrant greens and colorful petals, Mariam stood transformed. No longer the timid girl of Zahram's outskirts, but a radiant woman whose grace and courage had reshaped a kingdom's destiny. Rashad caught her gaze, his voice soft, yet full of conviction. "You've kindled a light where I thought only darkness remained," he said, a rare vulnerability threading his words. "Your strength has freed me from the bonds of the past, from the weight of legacy that threatened to suffocate us both." Mariam smiled, the softness of her expression a balm for years of battle and loss. "We are both freed now," she whispered, "from fear, from enemies, from the walls that once divided us." The world around them seemed to breathe with the promise of peace, as court members and palace guards alike gathered in the courtyard. Where suspicion had once reigned, respect now blossomed. The people saw in their Sheikh Billionaire not only a ruler of vast wealth and power, but a man who had chosen love and loyalty above all else. Children laughed nearby, their joyous voices ringing clear, a sound Rashad had not heard freely in too long. Mariam's eyes reflected the light of those children, and Rashad's heart swelled with the hope of generations to come. There was a hush then, as Rashad stepped forward and raised his hand in a solemn gesture, embraced by all. "Today, Zahram rises from shadows cast long and deep. We stand united, stronger for every trial, every truth spoken, every courage shown." He turned to Mariam, voice infused with warmth that had been absent for far too long. "With you, I am no longer the man weighed down by debts, only the king who will shape a future worthy of our dreams." The crowd stirred, whispers of hope and newfound devotion swirling together like the desert winds that never ceased. As the sun ascended, washing the palace in brilliant light, Rashad and Mariam walked side by side through the gardens, where the first blossoms of spring kissed the air with life. Their laughter mingled softly beneath the vast expanse of Zahram's endless sky, a sound unburdened, filled with promise. At last, the veil of secrecy lifted, replaced by the clear light of truth and love. Together, they faced the horizon, rulers not just by blood or title, but by the strength of a bond forged in fire, trust, and unwavering devotion. The desert whispered its ancient secrets once more, but now its tale was one of hope reborn, of a Sheikh Billionaire and a brave woman who dared to change destiny. And beneath the endless stars, their future shimmered, a life not defined by shadows, but by the dazzling light they had chosen to create.